Today we've come to the village of Askham, which is just south of Penrith, and we're going to do a walk up onto the hill of Heughscar Hill, which is out of Wainwrights Outlying Fells book. It's a very simple walk, ideal for a family outing or if you just wanted to take the dog for a short walk. And it looks like we've picked a good day. So as soon as I've got my boots on and sort my rucksack out, we'll be off. Cars could be parked at the end of the lane that leads west out of Askham village. From there, we'll walk west along the track that will take us all the way up to Heughscar Hill. We then head north up to Heughscar town, before going round the top of Heughscar, heading then south to the Cockpit Stone Circle. From where we head east down to the Copstone, before heading back north and then northeast back to the car. On leaving the car we head west. It's a fairly rough road, but still reasonable walking, and we're making our way up to those woods on hill. Once you get through the gate, it's worth having a look back on the way you've just come, because away in the distance you can see Lowther Castle tucked into the trees. This is the area for the fell ponies, and if you're lucky you can get quite close to them, and they're happy to pose for photographs. As we come around the corner of the wood, you can see the whole of the Helvellyn range is spread out way in the distance over Ullswater. Fabulous view. And this track will take us onto the summit of Heughscar Hill. But before then, we're going to just drop down off the path a bit to the boundary stone. And it's a point that not many people actually go to or actually know about. But Wainwright illustrated it in the Outlying Fells book. So I'll go take a few photographs, maybe do a quick sketch, and then we'll go on to the summit from there. But it's beautiful from here. Not only the Helvellyn range, but all of this heathermoor, which is in bloom at the minute. You can see a faint path that goes down here in the direction of Helvellyn. And this is the boundary stone. And it would mark the point between two estates. Now, Wainwright says it's inscribed, but I must admit I've had a look at this before and I've never seen an inscription on it. It would only be marked with two letters, maybe a L for Lowther. But having a good look here, either the stone is broken or the inscription's worn off. But I can't see that, but never mind. And a quick fly past by Tucano. It was a lovely day, so I took time to do a bit of drawing. Bit dark in there. That's it. I could put a colour wash on this now if I wanted to, just to show the bracken, but no, I don't want to. I'm starting to fiddle now. Don't need that. And that's it. Very simple pencil sketch of the boundary stone. It doesn't take long. And they're only for reference and for me in the future, and I'll turn that into a little painting back in the studio, so when you see the finished painting you'll have seen me do the sketch. And that's it, and we'll now move on up to the summit. But absolutely glorious day, And it is as simple as that. And this is the summit cairn of Heughscar Hill at 1,231 feet. Now I remember that one as 1, 2, 3, 1. That's easy, isn't it? It's a bit like a dance routine, a waltz thing, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 1. So that's the height of this fell. But like many of the flat top fells that you get, the highest point isn't necessarily the best viewpoint. And on here, on this one, the best viewpoint is about 200 metres to the south. And that's where we're heading now, where there's a nice cairn. Someone's put a nice cairn there, and you'll see that the viewpoint is much more impressive than from here. So we'll go and have a look there. So I've dropped down from the summit cairn to the south to this cairn that we're approaching now. And it's a bit of a diversion off the route that I was planning to do today, but it's worth it for the viewpoint. There are some people there, so that's fine, doesn't really matter. But if you happen to do this walk and you've got a decent day like this, I say decent day, a really good day like this, then it's worth taking this diversion down to this cairn for the better view. Now we're just retracing our steps a bit to get back to the summit. As you can see, there's a few more people about now. I'm not surprised, it's a beautiful day. It's a great place to be. So this is us back on the summit now of Heughscar Hill. I'm just going to have a drink before we head off. Now, you could head off on Wainwrights route down to the right here, which is to the west, and that would take you to Heughscar itself. But I'm not. I'm going to carry on this path behind us to another small cairn, and then I want to have a look at the tarn, which is not marked in Wainwright's book. He didn't mark every tarn, and have a look at that. I don't think it's much. I think it's overgrown last time I saw it, and then we'll get on to Heughscar that way. This other cairn, which lies just to the north of the summit, also has a boundary stone in it, but Wainwright didn't indicate it as such. As we head further north towards the tarn, you'll see outcrops of limestone breaking through the turf. You'll also come across a few erratic boulders lying on top of the grass or the limestone outcrops. Another feature of this type of geology are these big shake holes, dips in the ground, which can be quite big in areas. And this is the tarn, and it's quite unusual as it fills one of these limestone shake holes. And a short walk brings us to the edge of Heughscar. There are worse places to sit and have my lunch. This is on Heughscar, the limestone escarpment that runs round the side of the hill. Not for a long distance, just for a couple of 100 metres or so. On a day like today, when the clarity and visibility is so clear, it's just a wonderful place. Not only can I see the Helvellyn range there, and then it goes round to the northern fells, Blencathra, and then Carrick Fell, but way to the north I can see the North Pennines, and then way in the distance I can see some of the low fells of Scotland, Dumfries and Galloway, and the southern uplands. Absolutely fabulous. But from here we're going to head north just onto the edge of this escarpment, and then down along the path that you can probably see in front of us here, which is the old Roman road of High Street, and that'll lead us up towards the stone circle called the Cockpit. And that's where we're going next. As you walk along the Roman road, you'll see several of these large boulders placed just off to one side, almost at regular intervals, and they must have acted as some sort of route marker or indicator. And we're now on the old Roman road of High Street. Behind us, we would have come from Penrith and Emont Bridge, and then if we carried on in the direction we're heading now to the south, we'd go over Low Pot Hill, and the road would take us right over the hill of High Street, and then down into the Troutbeck Valley towards the direction of Windermere. Amazing to think that we're still walking on a road that was built nearly 2,000 years ago. And okay, it's not perfect, it's a bit boggy in places, but still marks on the landscape. As we come down off the fell, we now come to a crossroads of a good lane. If you go left, that will take you to Helton, the village of Helton. Down to the right will take you down to Pooley Bridge. But we're going to go straight across towards the stone circle, which you can just about see about 500 yards ahead of us. And it's a good lane, easy walking. And if you get lost, there's a good signpost for you. Come on. And this is the Cockpit, a circle of stones which probably dates back about 3,500 years, and definitely from the Bronze Age. And the name the Cockpit has actually been on maps for a long time, 100, 150 years or more, and it's unclear as to whether it actually was used as a cockpit for cockfighting. But if you look at the pictorial guides and the Outlying Fells book, you'll notice that Wainwright doesn't actually give it the name Cockpit, he just says Stone Circle. He must have known of the name, but probably due to his attitude to animal cruelty, he wouldn't put down that name in association with this feature. But yeah, it's about, I think it's 27 yards across, and it comprises of about, in this main part, something like 27-30 stones. But there are lots of other features on this area of Moor Divot and Ascot Fell, about 100 sites of antiquity altogether. A fascinating place, because it obviously meant an awful lot to ancient Britons as well as the Romans. And it's sited here because it's at like a crossroads, and from here to the north you would get to the henge at Emont, and of course over behind us there would be the Castle Rig Stone Circle. So there's lots of features of history, ancient history in fact, in this area. Amazing place. I'm going to move on now to the next place I want to go to, which is just along the moor here, and it's the reason that I've come here today in particular, but I'll explain that to you when we get there. We're heading off in the direction of Helton. Now I've come out here on this walk today for one reason in particular, and that's to come here, because I wanted to do a picture for the Lakeland 365 project of Heughscar Hill, and it is one of the most uninteresting hills there are going. But if I came out now, which I have done, I wanted to come and catch it when the heather is in bloom, as it is, as you can see now. It's looking wonderful, because I thought that would add extra colour and interest into a painting which could look rather mundane. So I'm going to sit down now and do a sketch. It won't be a finished painting, it will be one of my sort of daily sketches, and I'll just do it in watercolour, very simple, just to get an idea of the shape and the colour of the area, and I will then work it up in the studio as a painting. So I'm going to get a little place here by the path, set myself as a painting, and then do the sketch. Now, I don't usually stand right by a footpath to do a drawing and then a painting, but I had to this time because it was the best location to get the view of Heughscar Hill. A lovely day for painting because the paint dries dead quick, and that's what you need to do with a sketch. You need to be quick and apply the colours fast, and you're just recording the simplicity of the scene. If you do want to see more of my work, then obviously there's my website, but I put daily sketches up on my Facebook page, Andy Beck Artist, or on my Instagram page, and you can see them there. Usually they're done outside like this in the plein air, or sometimes they're studio work, but mostly they're outside, and you can see them and have a look there and see what I do. They're not all in the Lake District, a lot of them over in Teesdale where I live, but this is just, I've had to come over here today, as I said, for this Lakeland 365 picture. Instead of just keeping this as a little watercolour, I added a bit of pen work which gives a definition to the shape of the fell and the foreground. So that's the sketch done. Next thing we're going to do, I'm going to head along here to the track, then turn right towards the copstone and have a look at that, and that'll get us on our way back towards the start at Askham. Lovely evening, so I may as well make the use of the nice day and have a look at a few more features of Heughscar Hill. Well, this is one of these places where they've made an attempt to repair the path. Not repair it as such, but this is probably a, you know, peaty old bog path. There was a real mess at one time, and they've put these or chippings down, not chippings, but you know, the material down to make a path across the moor. And what's happened, it's become very rutted, and then the pits of the pools are getting deep. People don't want to walk in those, so they walk to either side, and all that's going to do is make the path wider and more eroded, and that won't take long to do. Shame. These sort of repairs, nice idea, but if they're not maintained or thought out properly, they're probably worse than the original. Anyway, that's my bit for the day. So we're coming up now to join the track that we crossed over earlier. Down there will be Pooley Bridge, and then in this direction is the way to Helton, which is where we're going. Now from here you could actually go straight across at this crossroads up towards the wood, and when you get to the wood turn right and you're back to the car. But there's a couple of things I want to just have a look at, and one of them is just down here, which is not the way we're going, but I want to just have a look at this, because this is another boundary stone which features in the Lowpot Hill chapter of Wainwright's Pictorial Guide, and this was a very interesting one for me when I painted it for the Wainwrights in colour, because in Wainwright's drawing this was a wooden post, and this metal plate here was in this place, but there's no wooden post, it's just this stone slab or the stone pillar. And further up the hill, just up here where there's a sheep stood there, just about there, was another boundary stone, and I went looking for that, couldn't find it. And what's happened over the years, the wooden post is rotted away and someone's moved that boundary stone down to here, so the two were combined into one. And so I painted this one as it is now with the stone pillar and that metal bracket around it. Well, I found it interesting anyway. There you go. Right, we're going to head along the road towards Helton, and that's this way. Lovely colours across there now. Beautiful. The track's really quite broad here, and you can carry on, just keep going and you'll get to the copstone, which is just on the horizon there, or you can take this lesser track footpath off to the left, and that's worth taking. Because this track, as you just come over the rise, will take you to this really rather nice smaller stone circle. And actually I really like this one because it's a small size. It's only what, 10-12 yards at the longest. It's sort of oval more than circular, and there's a dip in the middle, but the stones around here are just huge blocks. Plenty of other stones in it, but just lovely, and it makes you think of what went on here, the history of this place and the history of Moordivach and Askham Fell. As I said, I read somewhere that there's about 100 sites of antiquity here on this area of Moordivach, and I've been out and I've seen a fair number. I haven't a clue about most of them, but there's tumuli and cairns, and just over here there's a couple more standing stones, and we're heading up to the copstone here. And it's a fascinating area. It just makes you wonder, what was the attraction to the ancient Britons to come and live here? But even without knowing, just to come on a beautiful evening like this and just sit and contemplate and enjoy the landscape. From here we're going to go to the copstone, which is about 400 yards away, and there's a path that just goes past here, and in a direct line between here and the copstone are two other stones about halfway along. So we'll pass through those, which must be in a direct line between all three features, and then we'll get up to the top and have a look around there. Beautiful evening for it. Why not make the most of it? This is the copstone, a substantial, almost egg-shaped boulder of some age. Why it's put here, who knows? How long ago? Who can say? But apparently there was a whole avenue of these stones stretching away to the west, going along the track that we've just come down, and they were placed at even spaces either side of this wide track. But this is the only one that's still standing. There are others, a few of them, just flat either side of the road. Behind us, up there, you can see the woods, which we passed earlier as we went up to the top of Heughscar Hill. Not a breath of wind now. And in front of me, there's all of the Heughscar Fells stretched out way in the distance. Up here, it's Cross Fell, Great Dun Fell. Cracking view. And we're going to head now over the rise back to the car at Askham. Shouldn't take long, but an enjoyable walk, fairly flat through the moor. We retraced our steps back to the smaller stone circle before heading across the moor, heading in the direction of the wood on the horizon. When we got there, we headed right, and that took us back through the gate that we came through earlier. Well, here we are back at the car. As you can probably tell, it's late afternoon, early evening, and it's been a really enjoyable day in perfect weather conditions. Now, you could probably do that walk in about 3 hours, but it takes me an awful lot longer because, as you see, I stop and take my photographs, and more importantly, I do my sketching. That takes a lot of time, and on top of all that, I do the filming. As you can probably tell, there is no other person here, it's just me, there's no camera crew, and it's me and the dog. Now, if you like what I do, you can support me, because in the description below you'll see a link to PayPal, and you can buy me a beer or a coffee, and that small token just goes to support me in my work. But if you have liked what I've done, this film, then why not click the like button? It's there just below. You can do it now. Go on, you can do it. And even better, subscribe to my channel. Again, just in the button below. There'll be more films coming along shortly. But in the meantime, I think it's time I'm going to have my tea, and I'm going to sit here and enjoy the late sun, and I'll go home tonight and be working in the studio tomorrow. But as I always say, thanks for watching.